All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Dash for the Spirit to do this lesson. Double honor to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. Shalom to the men of the Lord, prophesying, preaching, and teaching on the highways and byways in sincerity and truth. Shalom, Barakathum. And I wanted to go into this video. It had me thinking, how things, they repeat themselves over in history and how the Most High, uh, he does repeat things. There's a such thing as reincarnation, where you commit certain acts, good or bad, and you come out and you live those judgments, out on the planet Earth, and that happens over lifetimes. And not only are people reincarnation, kingdoms are reincarnated. All right. You had the ancient Babylonian Empire, which was with Nimrod, all right, where he was trying to do the Tower of Babel, but trying to expand and basically be like the Most High. And then later, during the time of of Jeremiah and several other prophets, you had the Neo-Babylonian Empire. So the Babylonians basically came back. All right, now their ruler wasn't named Nimrod. You had Nebuchadnezzar. All right, but ultimately that shows the Most High does things over and over and over again. Just like in the days of Moses, you had the tabernacle. All right, and then when you get down to the days of the kingdom, King David and Solomon, you had the temple, all right, the holy temple, like, which represented the same thing, but they weren't exactly the same. But you can see things repeat themselves cyclically, and you can see the same thing with Adam giving birth to Cain and Abel, which Abel was slew, and then Seth was raised up, and you can see Isaac giving birth with Rebekah to Jacob and Esau, those same twins with the same dynamic, which had the same spirits in them. All right. And you can see these things certain things repeat themselves over and over and over again. And it's no different with America. For you brothers that can receive it, America is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire. All right. It's that second beast whose deadly wound was healed, spoken about in Revelation. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna get it. I forget which chapter and verse specifically it is. Let's see, deadly wound. Yeah, it's in 13. I'll just open the whole chapter real quick. It says the beast from the sea, and it says, and I stood up on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. Now those 7 horns goes back to those 7 European nations, including the 2 segmented Germanies, France, uh, uh, Rome, Spain, all right, England, all right, and that's basically the New Roman Empire. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth was as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. Now this goes into the fall of the Roman Empire around late 300s to 400 AD, basically around the time that Rome got sacked. That's basically when the Roman Empire fell, and you basically had Jake ruling for about 1,000 years. After that, they called the Dark Ages, and you had the Eastern Roman Empire that was still doing its thing, which was mainly run by Jakes. Um, over there, it says, and they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him?" All right, because the second beast, when they came back, man, they were a formidable force. Remember, they took over the entire Western Hemisphere, and they were battling wars over in Europe. All right, so the Most High renewed them. They renewed their strength, and they've basically been ruling. You know, those kings from Spain and Portugal and France and England. They've basically been the world power ever since. You know, no one's, especially especially America, which came out of England. Nobody's been able to match their military ability ever since then. You had some world wars, but the conclusion of it was Esau winning. You know, or the western side of Esau winning. All right, so that's a little bit the backstory. I'm gonna play some of this video here. This is with Jordan Peterson and Camille Paglia.
So, you know, there are elements in my character that are optimistic. You know, I've looked, for example, I worked for a UN committee and on the relationship between economic development and sustainability, and I found out a variety of things that were very optimistic, like the fact that, you know, the UN set out to have poverty between 2000 and 2015 worldwide and actually hit that by about 2010, right? So we're in the period of the fastest transformation of the bottom strata of the world's population into.
But there really is no optimism even there because Esau just lies. Esau's had the money to erase poverty for years, decades, and he's not done it. Why? Because ultimately he wants a service class, a servant class, slaves basically. It's not in his interest to have other people come up. He's threatened by other people coming up because he's a base man. He's afraid of competition. You know, because he's not living right ultimately.
To something approximating middle class that's ever occurred. And there's all these great technological innovations on the horizon, and it looks to me like things could go extraordinarily well if we were careful. But I'm not optimistic. And maybe that's me. I'm pessimistic because I also see that there's 5 or 6 things happening, all of which appear at the level of catastrophe that are all happening at the same time. And so one of the things that I'd like to ask you is like, what do you see happening in the next 10 years in the universities or in culture at large? And I mean, you just put forward a proposal for the universities for the treatment of women, which I think is a very interesting one because women do have a different time frame than men. But like, what the hell is the proper way forward? I've been encouraging young men to tell the truth and to take responsibility, and there's a huge market for that message. But I'm not convinced by any stretch of the imagination that it's enough. What, like, when you look forward and you try to be optimistic, what the hell do you see?
Well, in the largest scale, I'm concerned about the future of Western culture because, as a
And she should be because this was prophesied that this place would fall and in a very horrible way. All right, that's the Spirit 144. Stopped it on there. Um, and Edomites, they know, man. They see it, and that's why they're getting scared. All right, that guilt is at an all-time high. That's why they funded Black Lives Matter because it's just how niggas go to church. They know they're just going through the motions, but their conscience eats them up, so they feel like they got to do some acts where they can say that they prayed to the Most High, but they're not doing the things in their life that really pleases the Most High. They're just trying to appease it. Just how Esau, he's not doing the things to make things right between what he did with Jake, but he still feels guilty. He wants to go through some motion, so he'll just fund Black Lives Matter to try to appease his conscience. You know, the majority of these regular Edomites on the higher level, we all know Esau is nefariously using that organization to do wickedness uh, in the planet Earth, and especially using our people. But anyway,
a student of history, it looks too much to me like ancient Rome, okay, which became overexpanded, which became, it was at the mercy of bureaucratic creep, okay,
I can imagine one of them.
Yes, right, and Roman identity eventually got blurred, okay, in its incorporation of so many different cultures, which at first seemed like a healthy kind of multicultural.
Yeah, so Roman culture got blurred. They started worshiping different cultures. They started letting anything in. They started embracing everything, and they had basically no identity. It got blurred, like she said, and that's what America is today, man. It's a complete melting pot. It has no identity. At one point, it was more Masonic. It was about freedom, and it's supposed to represent all these things and that. But now, man, it doesn't represent anything. All right, it used to be a Christian nation. Now, it's one of the biggest populations of atheists, and witchcraft. You can be a Wiccan, you can be a Buddhist. All right, you can be, you know, undesirable, anything contrary to the scriptures. You can be those things in America. There really is no identity of the people. It's just confusion, and that's why you see why this place is called Babylon. All right, and Rome did the same thing. This is how we know that America is Rome, and then that's that second beast whose deadly wound was healed, because it's going through the same practices. When you look at the architecture design of this place, of the White House, the Lincoln Memorial, all right, the Capitol building, all of these things are ancient Roman and Greek uh, designs. Okay, so they were reincarnated as Esau Edom is the ruler over here. They're the Chaldeans spoken about in Jeremiah. Okay.
But eventually it
Yes.
overexpanded and simply collapsed of its own weight. So I am concerned about the whether Western culture is in a rapid decline. I think it would be very easy, because we are so interconnected and so overcomplex. Very easy to bring it to ruin. It would only take one major natural disaster to do that. But the universities themselves.
Yeah, only one major national disaster, and everything all hell would break loose. Cause you women out here, man, y'all don't know what the hell is going on. All you know is OnlyFans, uh, Uber Eats, bars and clubs, comfort, technology. Don't have a clue what's going on. And when real disaster hits, man, y'all gonna be begging for men of the Lord.
I mean, I think people are all of a sudden in the United States much more attentive to issues of political correctness because of the riots at Berkeley, which was the capital of free speech. I mean, the free speech movement happened in the spring before I entered college in 1964. It's one of the great principles and inspirational stories of my entire life. Mario Savio's assertion of the supremacy of free thought and free speech. These are, and I think that perhaps we might just have turned a corner, but it's going to take a very very long time for the university to be reformed. I feel that the
It's not
cafeteria
happening.
menu of the university curriculum has to be abandoned. That we must return to historical courses that begin in the earliest period, the Stone Age and Antiquity, in order to.
But see, these women are so full of pride in these colleges. They're too far gone. All right, they're grown people. You can't tell them what to do without rounding them up. And Esau's going to get there. He's going to get to that mob, and he's going to round a lot of you up who aren't compliant. But that's where we are, because you've let wickedness wax greater and greater. You've done nothing about it. You have unrighteous laws, and you've let it go on for generations. So this is what happens. You part of the fall. This is Daniel 2:31. It says this is the king's dream. Daniel's interpretation. It says Daniel 2:31. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. The image's head was of fine gold. Now, if you know anything about the ancient empires, you had basically major empires that that came in succession after one another. All right. Um, Now the real empires go back to Egypt. All right. But this empire is gonna it's gonna start with Babylon, basically. Because you had Egypt, you had Assyria. Those empires were, they existed. Uh, but this is a prophetic vision during the time of Daniel, which he's in the time of the Babylonians. Okay, it says the image's head was of fine gold, his breasts and arms of silver, his belly and thighs of brass, his legs of iron, and his feet part of iron and part of clay. So the gold head was basically the Babylonian Empire. All right, at the top. All right, then you have the breast and arms of silver. Um, that goes into the Persians. All right, because the king of the Medes basically take them down. You had the Medo-Persian Empire. Then you had the thighs of brass, which that was basically the Greeks that who took down the Persians. And all of this is historically verifiable. This occurred in the same exact way that Daniel broke it down. All right. So the thighs of brass were the Greeks, and then the legs of iron right here were the Romans. Okay. And it's spiritual because the Greeks used mostly brass in their weapons, and the Romans were known for using a lot of iron in their weapons and different things and shields and whatnot. All right. So these empires came in succession of each other, and it says his feet. This is the important part. The feet, part of iron and part clay. So you can see the feet is a new empire, and it's the bottom part. It's the last part. The thing holding all of these other idols and other empires up, or imperialism in general. You can see part of its iron. So that's a clue right there that Rome would be reincarnated as one of the last empires. All right, but it's mixed with part clay. All right, and part of that clay, in other parts of the scriptures, is used to represent debt. And any way you look at it, when you mix something like that, two different materials of different strengths and consistencies, it's gonna crumble. It's not a foundation that you want to lean on, and that's what the new American or the new beast, the new NATO, EU, whatever you want to call it. That's what they're made of. They're highly run on debt. The U.S. dollar. They're used. They heavily use relying on expanding their military, buying things they don't have. Being part of not having a solid culture. They don't have any solid foundation on what they believe. It's just a mess. So this description is very spiritual, man. But let's see what happens to it. It says, verse 34, thou sawest till that a stone was cut out with hands, which smote the image upon its feet, that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces, because the feet is the stability of it, and the stability of it is actually the weakest material. It's the least solid material. When you read the rest of it, the rest of this is solid. Fine gold, all right, arms of silver. His belly and his thighs of brass. All right, those are solid materials, man. Legs of iron is a solid material, which is the first Roman Empire. But when you get down to the feet, man, this is not a solid material. The Most High made them that way, and he's just going to utterly break them in pieces. And what does it do? It says, then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together. Why? Because the feet were weak. Okay, the feet were although they were formidable, they have everything. They're an overvalued asset. I'll put it to you that way. All right, they really don't have everything on lock the way that they think that they do, and that's why they're panicking. All right, they're rushing to develop space technology, lasers, and various other things, and they're rushing to enslave you with this MOB, because there's more people on the earth than ever, and there's more people that hate them on the earth than ever. All right. It says so basically says they all were broken to pieces together and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. So the Most High is destroying this all of these idols, going back to Babylon, Persia, uh, uh, Greece, Rome, utterly getting wiped out. It says, and the stone that smote them, that smote the image, became a great mountain. And that's Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai, sending his son Yahweh Shai, Michael the great prince, and ultimately the 144,000 and the elect on down. That great mountain, the mountains represent governments, okay, rulerships. It says, it smote the image, became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. So this is what happens right before the kingdom of heaven, okay? Now I pulled Jeremiah 51. You know, you can read this whole chapter to go in about how Babylon, which is America, being spoken about here, how Jeremiah predicted the fall of the current Babylon, and he was going in on the future Babylon, which is now referred to as America. All right, this is I'm gonna just read about verse. I'm gonna read 1 through 3. This is Jeremiah 51 and 1. It says, "Thus saith the Lord Jehovah: Behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind." And what is that destroying wind? It's not a technology that existed back in the ancient Babylonian Empire. That's talking about thermonuclear missiles, man. It says, "And will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her, all right, and shall empty her land, all right, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about." And who is the they? The other nations. When it says the beast, that these shall hate the whore, all right, and you read Ezekiel 38 about all those other nations gathering around to do battle, okay? It says, "Against him that bendeth, let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her host." All right. Now you can keep reading. It's a very good chapter, but that's ultimately what's going to be the end of it, man. And see, these Esau knows they're trying to have these discussions now, but it's too late. Okay. All right. So with that, hopefully your brothers were edified. Call hello Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Rachach Dash Shalom Wa Abad Babal.